Crime. It's a word we see in headlines every single day. It's a challenge that affects families and communities all across the United States. But behind those headlines, there's this whole complex system of response and, maybe even more importantly, prevention. So in this explainer, we're going to break down the mechanics of how we confront crime and how we can move from just reacting to it to actually creating proactive solutions for a safer future.
And that really brings us to the big question, right? Can we actually prevent crime before it even happens? For so long, our approach has basically been reactive. We respond after something bad has already occurred, but what if we could flip that script? We're going to dive into the strategies and systems that are all about getting ahead of the curve, stopping crime before it ever gets a chance to start.
Okay, so to prevent something, you first have to really understand it. It just makes sense. So we're going to start by defining what crime actually is, and then take a look at the really complex reasons why it happens in the first place.
All right, let's start with the absolute basics. A crime is any action that breaks a formal law and ends up harming people, property, or society as a whole. Now, that definition sounds simple enough, right? But as we all know, the issue itself is anything but. So that big, broad definition really breaks down into a few different buckets. You've got violent crimes and property crimes, the ones we probably hear about the most. But then there are white-collar offenses like fraud and scams, in the world of cybercrime, which is just exploding. Each one of these categories brings its own unique set of challenges for law enforcement and for prevention.
And this is absolutely crucial. Crime doesn't happen in a vacuum. It often grows out of these deep societal issues. Things like poverty, addiction, mental health struggles, and a lack of educational opportunities. These are the root causes that can create an environment where crime can take hold. And if we really want to talk about prevention, we have to talk about addressing these things.
So when a crime does happen, how do we respond? Well, that's when this huge, complex justice system kicks into gear. It's designed to enforce our laws, maintain order, and hopefully deliver justice.
In the United States, law enforcement isn't just one single group. It's actually a multi-layered system. It works at the local level with your city police, at the county level with sheriffs. Then you have state police and highway patrol, and all the way up to federal agencies like the FBI or the DEA. Each one has its own turf, so to speak, and making sure they all work together is essential.
Once an offense is reported, a pretty clear process starts to unfold. It all begins with an investigation to gather evidence. If they find what's called probable cause, an arrest is made. Then the case moves into the court system, where you have prosecutors and defense attorneys arguing the facts. And that journey ends with a judgment and a sentence, which could be anything from prison time to a rehabilitation program. And underpinning this entire process is a bedrock principle of American justice. You are innocent until proven guilty. This isn't just a nice saying, it's a protection written right into our Constitution. The responsibility, the burden of proof, is always on the prosecution. It's a fundamental safeguard to protect the rights of every single citizen.
Okay, so we've seen the official response after a crime happens. But now, let's pivot. Let's talk about stopping crime before law enforcement even needs to get involved. This is all about making that big shift from being reactive to being proactive.
And this brings us to a really important point. Preventing crime? Well, it's not solely the job of the police. True, effective prevention is a shared responsibility, one that really involves every single member of a community.
So what does that shared responsibility actually look like? Well, it can be things like neighborhood watch programs or education and youth programs that give kids positive alternatives. And maybe most importantly, it means investing in things like accessible mental health care and strong social support systems, tackling those root causes before they have a chance to grow.
When you boil it all down, it really comes to this. A safer America starts with all of us. When citizens are informed, when they look out for each other, and when they actively help build strong communities, they become the first and maybe the most effective line of defense against crime. All right, for our last section, let's look ahead. How can we take everything we've learned and use it to build smarter, more effective strategies for the future? A huge debate in crime reduction today really centers on two different philosophies. On one hand, you have punishment, which is all about penalties for what someone did in the past. On the other hand, there's rehabilitation. This is forward-looking. It uses tools like education, job training, and counseling to get at the root causes of an offender's behavior, all with the goal of breaking the cycle and preventing future crimes. So, the future of prevention isn't about choosing just one solution. It's about integrating a whole bunch of them. It means using technology and data
for smarter, more targeted policing. It means actively building trust between communities and law enforcement. And above all else, it demands a relentless focus on proactive prevention, not just reactive enforcement.
Look, the challenges here are complex and the work is really difficult. There's no doubt about it. But it is so important to remember that crime is not some unbeatable force. With smart strategies, with communities investing in themselves, and with all of us committed to prevention, creating safer communities is absolutely within our reach.
So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. We spend a lot of time asking what the law can do to protect us. But maybe the more powerful question is this: what's our role? How can we, as informed citizens, actively help build a safer society for everyone? The answer to that question might just be the most effective prevention strategy of all.